There comes a time in every connection, every almost love story, when silence says more than words ever could. You've pulled back, you've stopped chasing, you've gone quiet, and suddenly, their walls begin to whisper. The person who once seemed unshakable, distant, unreachable, begins to feel your absence like oxygen leaving a room, and that's where the switch flips. Because when you stop feeding the cycle that fuels their avoidance, something profound begins to happen inside them. The avoidant, the one who runs, the one who shuts down, the one who disappears when emotions rise, starts to feel something they haven't felt in a long time, the loss of your energy. This is not a game. It's not manipulation, it's alignment. It's a shift in energy that happens when you remember your worth. You're not here to chase someone who fears closeness. You're here to reprogram the vibration that created the chase in the first place. There are 7 words, 7 moves, and 7 days that can turn everything around. Not by changing them, but by changing you. When you activate these 7 steps, the universe responds differently. People respond differently. Energy bends toward you instead of away from you. And that's the secret formula, not to force love, but to flip the internal switch that makes the avoidant see you again, see your silence, see your glow, see your power that once begged for attention, now fully centered in self-respect. The truth is, every avoidant has 2 sides, the one that fears intimacy and the one that craves it deeply but doesn't know how to feel safe in it. Your job isn't to fight the fear. Your job is to become the calm that makes the fear unnecessary. For 7 days, you are going to move differently. You'll speak 7 words that reset your emotional frequency. You'll make 7 small moves that quietly reprogram their perception of you. And in 7 days, you'll begin to notice the pull shifts, the energy flips, because when you move from attachment to alignment, everything changes. So today we begin not to chase, not to prove, but to embody a new standard of energy that naturally draws what's meant for you. This isn't about winning someone back. It's about remembering who you were before the anxiety, before the confusion, before you lost your center. You're about to become the calmest storm they've ever felt, the kind that doesn't destroy but awakens. If you're ready to flip the switch, not just in them but in you, then listen closely, because these next 10 principles are the exact emotional rewiring moves that change everything. There's a moment in every person's life when they look at themselves in the mirror and whisper a word that changes everything. That word is enough of the waiting, enough of the wondering, enough of the endless mental gymnastics trying to decode someone who only understands distance. The word enough is not anger, it's awakening. It's the point where your soul finally says, I'm done betraying myself for the illusion of connection. Because let's be honest, when you've been entangled with someone who avoids intimacy, you start losing pieces of yourself trying to hold the connection together. You begin to mistake their silence for your fault. You chase, explain, beg, fix, apologize, just to feel seen for a moment. But that moment never lasts, does it? They pull away again and you start the cycle again. Saying enough doesn't mean you stop loving them. It means you stop abandoning yourself in the process of loving them. It's a decision that separates those who wait for change from those who become the change. When you say enough, your nervous system finally exhales. You stop scanning your phone for messages that may never come. You stop rehearsing imaginary conversations that never happen. You stop fighting battles that only exist in your own anxiety. And in that silence, the one that once terrified you, something new beggy. NS to rise, clarity, peace, power. The avoidant personality feeds on emotional pursuit, not out of cruelty, but conditioning. When you chase, they retreat. When you fix, they freeze. When you plead, they protect their walls. It's their defense against pain, and your pain becomes the proof that their distance works. But the moment you whisper enough, everything flips. You interrupt the pattern. You no longer validate their subconscious fear that love means pressure. Instead, you radiate calm detachment. You stop pushing against the wall and start building your own foundation on the other side of it. Here's the truth no one tells you. The word enough carries frequency. It's an energy that the universe immediately recognizes because it's not rooted in bitterness, it's rooted in awakening. It's the same frequency of self-respect that ends toxic cycles, transforms careers, heals bodies, and attracts love that doesn't have to be chased. When you say enough, you're not closey. Your heart, you're resetting your boundaries. You're sending out a signal that says, I will no longer beg to be chosen. I am chosen by myself. And here's the paradox. That's exactly when the avoidant begins to notice you again. Not because you played a trick, not because you manipulated them, but because energy doesn't chase energy. It mirrors it. When you step into enough, you stop vibrating at the frequency of fear. You stop sending the message, I need you to validate me. Instead, you radiate, I am whole, with or without your presence. Do you understand how powerful that is? That's the emotional earthquake that shakes their avoidance awake. They begin to sense that something is missing, your attention, your energy, your emotional labor, and they don't understand why it suddenly feels so quiet. That silence is your power speaking louder than your words ever did. Because when you finally say enough, the energy inside you starts to reorganize. You begin to leap better. You start to smile for no reason. You rediscover small joys that you forgot existed because you were too busy checking. If they cared, your body begins to heal from the tension of waiting. Your heart learns that peace is not the same as loneliness, and your mind stops chasing explanations that never bring closure. Here's what happens next, and I want you to feel this with your whole being. The moment you claim enough, you reprogram the law of attraction itself, because now, instead of broadcasting, I'm waiting, you're broadcasting, I'm ready for alignment, ready for authenticity, ready for relationships that meet you halfway, and that energy, it's magnetic. It doesn't chase, it pulls, it doesn't beg, it invites, it doesn't perform, it simply is. Let me say something that will stay with you. You can't attract peace from a place of panic. You can't attract love from a place of fear. You can't invite connection while betraying yourself. So when you stand tall, breathe deep, and whisper enough, you're not ending a story, you're beginning a new one. A story where your energy leads, not your anxiety. A story where your silence speaks of dignity, not defeat. A story where you no longer wait for someone to choose you because you've already chosen yourself. And maybe, just maybe, the avoidant who once ran from you will finally start running toward you, not because you forced it, but because for the first time they feel the safety that comes from your emotional independence. That's what enough does. It flips the dynamic. It ends the emotional chaos. It restores your power, and with it, the possibility of real connection. This is your first step. This is day one. This is the word of power that begins the 7-day transformation. When you pull back, it's not about punishing them. It's about protecting your peace. You are not withdrawing to create fear. You are stepping back to create space. Space for truth, space for self-respect, space for emotional clarity that you couldn't see when your heart was constantly reaching forward. The biggest mistake people make when dealing with avoidance is thinking that pulling back means disappearing in anger. No, bitterness is still attachment in disguise. It says, I'm pretending I don't care, but I'm watching every move. That energy still screams need, but when you pull back without bitterness, your energy becomes neutral, calm, unpredictable in the best way. They feel it, and it's unsettling. Because avoidants are used to a certain rhythm. They withdraw, you chase, they go cold, you get louder. But now, you're quiet. You're focused. You're not chasing, not proving, not explaining. And that silence becomes thunder. You are showing the avoidant something they've never seen before. Emotional consistency and detachment. You are teaching them that your presence was a choice, not a need. You are saying, I can love you deeply, but I can also love myself anew. To step back. That's the energy shift that flips their nervous system. Avoidants subconsciously fear engulfment. They fear losing their autonomy and love. When you pull back with peace, you remove the pressure. And paradoxically, that's when they start to miss your presence. Because your calm no longer threatens their safety, it creates curiosity. They wonder, why aren't they chasing me anymore? Have they moved on? Did I misread their feelings? Every avoidant experiences this internal confusion when the energy flips. They don't know how to process your silence because they expected your pursuit. But your peace disarms their defense. This move is spiritual alchemy, transforming attachment into power. When you no longer give emotional reactions, you break their pattern of control. And when the pattern breaks, emotions surface, theirs and yours. That's when you begin to truly heal. During this stage, something sacred happens inside you. You begin to taste freedom. Freedom from needing them to respond a certain way. The freedom from walking on eggshells. The freedom from trying to decode every text. You begin to notice that you feel lighter, calmer, stronger. Not because they returned, but because you did. You return to yourself. This is how you flip the energy dynamic without saying a single word. Pull back not to create distance, but to anchor power. Pull back because your peace matters more than proving your point. And if they do come back, they'll come back to a stronger, more grounded version of you. one that no longer settles for emotional breadcrumbs, one that knows silence is not punishment, it's preservation. That's the move that changes everything. Because when you stop fighting for space in someone's heart, you create it naturally. Say it aloud. Whisper it if you have to. I deserve. Two simple words that carry the weight of everything you've ever denied yourself. You deserve love that feels safe. You deserve connection that doesn't make you question your worth. You deserve reciprocity, peace, joy, and understanding. For too long, you've been programmed to think that love is something you earn, that you have to prove yourself worthy of someone's affection, that you have to overgive, overplease, over-apologize just to be enough. But that's the lie your trauma taught you. The truth is, you never had to earn what was already yours by nature. You were born deserving of love, born deserving of kindness, born deserving of respect. When you begin to say, I deserve, your entire vibration shifts. Your mind stops chasing validation and starts affirming identity. You stop saying, why don't they love me? And start saying, why am I staying where I am not seen? I deserve is a declaration of alignment. It doesn't demand, it attracts. Because the universe doesn't give you what you want, it gives you what you believe you deserve. If you believe you deserve inconsistency, you'll tolerate it. If you believe you deserve distance, you'll chase it. But if you believe you deserve peace, you'll stop running and let it find you. Every time you say, I deserve, you rewire your nervous system. You tell your inner child you don't have to beg anymore. You tell your higher self, I am open to what matches my worth. And when that frequency changes, the avoidant feels it too. They feel the subtle shift, the loss of emotional control. You're no longer waiting for their message, their apology, their validation. You've given those things to yourself. I deserve is not arrogance, it's alignment. It's knowing your value so deeply that you no longer fight for scraps. And ironically, that's when people start offering you the full meal because your energy no longer accepts less. This is the point where the avoidant begins to see your light again. But this time you're no longer shining it for them. You're shining it from you. Every avoidant dynamic thrives on emotional chaos. The highs, the lows, the uncertainty. It's addictive. It triggers both people's nervous systems. You start to feel alive in the drama, not realizing it's draining you. But the moment you step out of that cycle, you disrupt the addiction. You no longer respond to provocation. You don't explain yourself. You don't chase closure. You become calm, and that calm becomes contagious. You start to realize that not every message deserves a reply. Not every silence deserves analysis. Not every emotion needs expression. When you become unavailable to drama, you send the ultimate energetic message. My peace is more important than being understood. This is where the avoidant begins to spiral internally, because their system is wired to react to emotional intensity. When you don't play into it, they're left alone with their own discomfort, and that discomfort often triggers reflection. They begin to wonder, did I go too far? Why are they so calm? Have they truly let me go? Meanwhile, your focus shifts entirely. You're not waiting for their next move. You're building yours. You're investing in your growth, your focus, your inner power. The less you react, the more they feel your absence. The less you chase, the more they chase clarity. You're not ignoring them out of spite. You're prioritizing your peace. This move of presence creates attraction through emotional maturity. It says, I no longer dance in chaos. I move in peace. And peace is rare. Peace is irresistible because peace doesn't chase. Peace attracts. Peace, the word itself feels like an exhale, a soft but powerful release. Yet for most people tangled in an avoidant dynamic, peace feels like the hardest thing to access. Because your nervous system has been trained to expect chaos, it has been wired to believe that love must feel anxious to feel real. But peace, real, grounded, embodied peace, is what actually reprograms the dynamic. When you start choosing peace, you shift the entire energetic field between you and the avoidant. You stop vibrating in panic, and that immediately changes how they perceive you. Avoidants don't run from love. They run from pressure. They run from intensity that threatens their sense of safety. When you move with peace, you remove the pressure. You create emotional safety by example. Peace is not passive. It's power that's mastered itself. It says, I could react, but I won't. I could chase, but I choose presence. When you reach this stage, silence becomes your sanctuary, not your punishment. You learn to sit in quiet without the need to control what happens next. You trust that what's meant for you will find its way, because your energy is aligned with peace, not panic. The avoidant begins to feel that. They sense something different about you. The old triggers don't work anymore. You're not pulling for connection, you're radiating it. You're not seeking reassurance, you're becoming it. That's what flips the switch. Your peace becomes their MI. Roar, showing them a calm they've never known. And even if they don't come running back immediately, the vibration you carry starts attracting everything you've ever wanted. People who match your calm, opportunities that reflect your energy, moments that bring genuine joy instead of emotional roller coasters. Peace is the highest frequency of attraction, because it communicates one thing clearly: I no longer need you to complete me, I am whole. And that's the vibration that draws people back. Not desperation, not fear, but the unshakable calm of someone who has finally found home within themselves. Peace doesn't chase, it doesn't compete, it doesn't explain, it simply is. And in that being, everything begins to fall into place. When you begin to detach, the mind screams. It wants to hold on. It wants to know what happens next. It wants closure, clarity, and control. But real power comes when you detach, not with anger or bitterness, but with grace. Detaching with grace means you don't need to prove your worth by being seen. You don't need to post quotes about self-love for them to notice. You don't need to stage a comeback to show how strong you are. You simply move in silence. You move differently. You focus differently. You show up in your own life with a quiet confidence that says, I don't chase energy, I attract it. Graceful detachment confuses the avoidant because it breaks their expectation. They're used to push-pull dynamics, where every withdrawal is met with pursuit. But when you detach gracefully, there's no emotional retaliation, just absence. And absence, my friend, is felt far louder than anger ever could be. They start to notice. They scroll through old messages. They replay moments in their mind. They realize they no longer occupy your attention. And that realization creates curiosity. Why aren't they reacting? Have they moved on? Do they stop caring? That curiosity pulls their mind toward you energetically. And they wonder. You rise. You evolve. You expand. Graceful detachment is emotional self-respect in motion. It's when your boundaries no longer need to be announced. They're felt. You don't demand recognition. You embody it. You don't chase validation. You radiate it. You've turned your pain into poise, your silence into magnetism, your absence into intrigue. And in that mystery, the avoidant starts to see something they've never seen before: your independence, your self-worth, your power. They may try to re-enter, to test if your peace was real or temporary, but you won't flinch, because your detachment wasn't a tactic, it was a transformation. You've transcended the need to be understood. You've entered the realm of being respected. That's what graceful detachment does. It flips emotional control from reaction to regulation. It makes your silence louder than any explanation. And it shows the world, including the avoidant, that your value never depended on their attention. Detach with grace and watch how the universe responds differently. Forgiveness. A word most people misunderstand. They think forgiveness means saying, it's okay. No. Forgiveness means saying, it happened, and it no longer defines me. Forgiveness is the most powerful energetic reset you can ever perform, because when you hold on to resentment, you're not punishing them. You're poisoning yourself. Every time you replay the story in your head, you relive the pain. You keep your energy anchored to the past. But when you forgive, you release the emotional charge. You stop trying to change what happened and start choosing what happens next. Forgiveness doesn't excuse behavior. It frees your soul. It says you no longer control how I feel. And the moment you say that, your vibration skyrockets. Avoidants often carry their own pain. Their distance is their defense. Their silence is their shield. When you forgive, you're not just freeing yourself. You're sending healing in, urging into the connection. You're showing compassion for their humanity while honoring your own. And that's the paradox. The moment you release them energetically, you often become magnetic again, because love cannot flow through resentment. It only flows through release. Forgiveness is not forgetting, it's remembering without reliving. It's when you can look at the memory and feel peace instead of pain. You stop trying to win the story. You stop needing justice. Soil. Forgive, because holding on keeps you in their story. Letting go writes your own. This word, forgive, is the emotional equivalent of setting yourself free. It's not weakness. It's not surrender. It's the ultimate form of strength. Because anyone can hold a grudge, but only the powerful can release one. And when you do, the universe starts to move mountains in your favor. There comes a moment when your heart finally stops orbiting around someone else and starts expanding back toward yourself. That moment is sacred. It's when you reclaim all the energy you once poured into analyzing, texting, waiting, fixing, and you redirect it into you. Reinvesting in your life isn't a distraction. It's the very medicine that heals the wound of attachment. Because the opposite of obsession isn't indifference, it's purpose. When you start waking up for your goals again, when you start feeling excitement for the next chapter, rather than replaying the old one, something electric happens in your energy field. The light in your eyes changes. The rhythm of your walk changes. You radiate self-trust again, and people can sense it. The avoidant feels it too. They may not understand why they suddenly think of you at random times. They may not know why your image appears when they hear a certain song. It's because energy never lies, and yours just leveled up. Reinvesting means pouring energy back into your health, your career, your passions, your friendships. It means taking the attention that once belonged to worry and giving it to creation. Every time you do that, you send a signal to your subconscious, I am safe in my own growth. This is not the time to wait for closure. It's the time to build momentum, start new projects, learn new skills, decorate your space, reconnect with people who make you laugh until you forget what hurt you. When your world expands, the power dynamic flips naturally. Because the more you expand, the less they define your worth. The less paid define your emotional weather. And the irony? Expansion is magnetic. Nothing attracts a person more than someone who glows in their own direction. Growth is the loudest silence you can ever send. It tells the world, I'm no longer living in reaction. I'm living in creation. So today, promise yourself this. For every hour you once spent worrying about them, you'll spend 2 building yourself. Because what you water grows, and it's time to water your own garden again. Trust, the hardest word to embrace after you've been hurt, yet the only word that truly restores your peace. When you trust, you stop trying to micromanage the universe. You stop asking, what if they never come back? And start saying, if it's meant, it will. Trust shifts your focus from control to surrender. It says, I've done my part. Now I allow life to do the rest. That vibration alone changes everything. Because while fear contracts energy, trust expands it. Fear chases. Trust attracts. Fear says, I need. Be an answer. Trust whispers, I already have one inside me. The avoidant senses this new stability. They don't feel the pull of panic from you anymore. They feel spaciousness, the kind of energy that allows them to breathe, and that's when the walls they built begin to soften. Trust also heals your body. The moment you stop living in future anxiety, your nervous system relaxes. You begin to feel alive in the present again. Food tastes better. Music hits deeper. Life begins to sparkle. To trust doesn't mean to sit idle. It means to move forward knowing that what's aligned for you cannot miss you. It means to believe that silence is protection, not rejection. Delay is redirection, not denial. You trust that your growth isn't being ignored, it's being prepared for its reward. This is the quiet confidence that turns heads and opens doors. Because people who trust radiate certainty. They don't need to convince anyone, they simply are. Repeat this daily. I trust my timing. Trust my worth. I trust that what's meant for me will feel safe to stay. That mantra alone rewires years of fear into faith. And that faith, it's what flips not only the avoidance switch, but the entire trajectory of your life. This is the pinnacle, the moment where everything you've learned converges into one truth. Love, when stripped of fear, becomes unstoppable. When you lead with love, for yourself, for life, for others, you stop negotiating your value. You stop chasing people who can't meet you, because your focus is no longer lack. It's abundance. Leading with love doesn't mean letting everyone back in. It means you no longer allow bitterness to drive the car. You respond with compassion instead of control, with understanding instead of ego. And that energy, it's intoxicating, because love is the purest power on earth. It's the energy that heals, attracts, rebuilds, and recreates. Fear closes the heart, love opens it. When you move through life in that state, every being begins to align, your relationships, your finances, your opportunities, your health. Because love is expansion, and expansion is creation. Even toward the avoidant, love doesn't mean you wait. It means you wish them healing and keep walking. It means you don't shrink yourself to make them comfortable. You remain open to life itself, and here's the ultimate paradox. When you truly release fear, you stop repelling love. The very person who once ran from your intensity may now be drawn to your peace because you've become what they always needed but never knew how to hold. Stability wrapped in warmth. Lead with love, and fear loses its grip forever. Look back for a moment at the version of you who begged for answers, who stayed up at night analyzing mixed signals, who forgot how to breathe because someone else's silence felt like rejection. That version of you was not weak. That version was learning. They were discovering how powerful they could become once they stopped trying to fix someone else's wounds and started healing their own. You've now learned the 7 words, 7 moves, 7 days that realign your entire energetic blueprint. Not as tricks, not as strategies, but as spiritual laws. You've learned that power doesn't live in control. It lives in release. That attraction doesn't live in pursuit. It lives in peace. And that the moment you decide, I deserve better, the universe begins rearranging everything to match that decision. This journey isn't about making the avoidant chase you. It's about remembering that you never had to chase to begin with. Love that's right for you doesn't require running. It requires readiness. When you stand in your worth, the right people recognize you instantly because your energy speaks before your words ever can. Over these 7 days, you'll notice subtle miracles. Your body will feel lighter. Your thoughts will quiet down. The faces of people who truly care will start appearing again. You'll attract synchronicities, songs, signs, messages that remind you you're on the right path. That's the universe applauding your alignment. And yes, the avoidant may feel it too. They may reach out, they may test the waters, they may finally sense the peace that once scared them. But whether they return or not is no longer your measure of success. The victory is in your evolution, the way you reclaimed your energy, your calm, your confidence, and your love, because in the end, the real switch you flipped wasn't in them. It was in you. You stopped operating from fear and started radiating from fullness. You remembered that love is not about control, it's about connection. And now, as you step forward into the next chapter of your life, know this: you are the switch, you are the light, and your energy, calm, powerful, peaceful, will draw everything that's meant for you straight into your orbit. And as we close this journey together, I want you to take one final deep breath. Inhale, peace. Exhale the past. Because what you've just experienced isn't just a lesson, it's a transformation. You didn't just learn how to flip someone else's switch, you flipped your own. You shifted from confusion to clarity, from anxiety to alignment, from chasing to choosing, and that's what life is about. Remembering that you are the creator of your own frequency. You are the architect of your own energy. You are the author of your own peace. If this message touched you, if something inside you clicked, that's not coincidence. That's your soul waking up. So promise yourself tonight you'll never go back to shrinking for love again. You'll never beg for attention that costs you your peace. And you'll never forget that the power was never in the chase. It was always in your calm. Thank you for walking this journey with me today. If you felt this message deeply, make sure to subscribe, because this is only the beginning. Together, we'll keep rising, keep healing, and keep you unlocking the strongest version of you, one truth at a time. Until next time, stay powerful, stay peaceful, and remember, you are the switch.